No matter where you are in your guitar journey, the lesson that we're diving into today is a game changer for your guitar solos. It's a concept many of us overlook, sometimes without even realizing it. Simply put, it's about simplifying your guitar playing in order to sound better. Let me break it down. Often, we lean heavily on scales when soloing, and that makes sense. Scales give us the roadmap and correct notes in a key. But here's the funny part. Just because a scale contains all those correct notes doesn't mean that we should use all of the notes at all times in our solos. When we do, we can actually sound less musical, more robotic, and downright scaly. Yes, scales do show us the good sounding note options, but we need to learn to restrict ourselves by using constraints in order to build stronger phrases and stronger solos. You could call this limitation practice. Over the years, I have transcribed and learned lots and lots of licks and solos from the great masters. They are so good that they often make us think that they are playing with much more complexity than they actually are. This oftentimes sends people down the path of the YouTube black hole, where you can get lost searching for the secret scales and secret concepts of the masters. Well, I'm here to tell you that short of extreme, like progressive jazz and fusion players, the greats are mostly just playing pentatonic and 7-note major scales with the modes included. But the way they play these concepts is what is different. So in order to work on the most important ingredients, let's simplify the number of notes we allow ourselves to play in the beginning of this exercise. Let's use the basic 1-octave diagonal pentatonic scale shape today. This is my favorite way to access the pentatonics. So this little shape is giving us the full pentatonic scale in a small 2-string position. So I can't recommend to you enough that goal-oriented practice over backing tracks is a key ingredient to success. Playing scales with no backing track is a waste of time. Using the metronome by itself, perfecting the scale over and over, blah, that is just useless. Once you have a handle on a scale shape, you should immediately start trying to be creative with it rather than trying to perfect your skills at playing the scale itself. Perfect scales don't equate to great music. Spending time perfecting scale shapes literally just leads to playing scale shapes better rather than actually being able to use them in an improvisation. It's the reason why classical musicians can't improvise. So today, we will use this groovy B minor track that's in a Pink Floyd kind of feel. As always, you can download the backing track below. And this backing track is using just 2 chords, a B minor 7 and an E7, which makes it really nice in this kind of B Dorian improv. So let's apply the idea of less is more. My first recommendation is to actually listen to what the band is doing before you start playing. Tune into the drum part. Notice how the kick and the snare are interacting. So the kick is normally happening on 1 and 3, snare on 2 and 4. This is a little bit different with a little anticipation in the kick. All right, and on top of that, what are the cymbals doing? Hi-hats are ride. Here, ride cymbal. After that, how is the bass lining up with the drums? So this all creates the feel of the track, which we should be kind of deepening our awareness of and how we're playing with it. That'll make you sound great. And on top of this drum and the bass part, we have the harmony, the chords. Here it's 2 guitar parts. Let's listen to what those parts are doing. One's kind of an airy, spacey in the back, and the other one's kind of playing lower, kind of basic chords. So now that we're a bit more tuned into the music, it's so important to tune in rather than just kind of play over it. let's go ahead and start playing a bit. And think about your favorite guitar soloists. If you're like me, you might absolutely love somebody like David Gilmour or Jeff Beck, or many of the other players who play more melodic passages rather than just like shredding. So let's first try a little bit of something. I want you to play a line like this, and then I want you to take your hand off the guitar. So what we just did was we created some space in the music. Guitar players want to keep playing all the time, but this actually allows the listener to process what you just played. Let's try it again. All right, now you play. Make sure to take that hand off the guitar. All right, so keep thinking about that. Now that we have a bit more space, notice that right away, I'm applying some tools of decoration. Even though we are just playing 5 notes in the diagonal minor pentatonic, you can decorate like crazy. The 5 tools of decoration that I love are slides, hammer-ons, pull-offs, bends, and vibrato. So let's give all of those a go. And so for practice, if I force myself to play only slides for a bit, I end up growing immensely in that particular technique from that small practice constraint. So here I'll play with some slides. Still space. All right, so one really cool thing that you can do is you actually can slide from outside of the scale. So if you just slide from 1/2 step below any of the notes in the scale, you'll have this nice little grace note that sounds really fantastic, and it gives some great color. It's kind of easy to lose sight of the scale, so don't let those 1/2 step slides confuse you. Let me show you. You don't stay long on the first note, you slide right in. Okay, so let's try some hammer-ons now. Hammer-ons only. How many different spots can we hammer in just those 5 notes? Don't forget, hammers could be really slow. I can wait a long time for that second note. Or they can be really fast. They also could be kind of anywhere in between, and you want to mix them up. I frequently run into kind of intermediate guitarists on the plateau that have one default speed for all of these techniques. And if you're connected with the rhythm, you'll realize that there are lots of rhythmically awesome ways to play these decorations. This is kind of a major difference from intermediates versus the masters. Even a wide hammer-on. All right, so I wanted to take a moment to introduce the sponsor of this video, the diagonal pentatonic method. So if you're enjoying this lesson, I wanted to let you know that I have a full course on the diagonal pentatonic method. This was literally the most groundbreaking approach to pentatonics that I have ever learned. It helped me so much that I turned it into an entire method for learning both major and minor pentatonic scales across the entire guitar neck. You get studio quality backing tracks, over 106 interactive tabs to play along with, exercises that actually help you turn your scales into music, and much, much more. So go ahead and click the link below or head to my site and use the code SELFDOUBT to get 40% off today. Now, how about some pull-offs? So you'll notice that I've been putting little tastes of vibrato in by default, kind of the whole time. Whether slides, pull-offs, hammer-ons, vibrato is amazing and it's one of the most unique things about your playing. So think about your vibrato speed and depth. Another common weakness in intermediate guitar players is to have just one kind of default vibrato speed and depth. And it's typically kind of like nervous and anxious, kind of like fast, like this. And you should probably think about playing vibrato more slowly, more relaxed, especially on a mellow track like this. You could go slow and wide, or slow and thin, it's kind of barely, fast and wide, or fast and thin. And all of the varieties in between kind of allow you to sound more expressive and more musical. So lastly, let's talk about bends. The middle note of the 3-note set in this pattern is the absolute best and most forgiving bend. But you can go ahead and you can try bends on each of the notes in this scale. One of the coolest bends that I've learned is similar to the half-step slide. So you just play down one note from the scale, you play the scale note, go down a half step, and then you just bend up into that half step. A little tricky, but these half-step bends sound great, and you can kind of get more lyrical with them. It reminds me of the great Jeff Beck. So I challenge you to apply different limitations or constraints to your playing. So you don't have to do this for your entire practice session, but even 5 to 10 minutes over a couple of tracks will do wonders for your guitar soloing and your creativity. Many guitarists think that the only way to practice is to play exercises or songs repeatedly over and over, kind of mindlessly. None of this stuff on the guitar was easy for me, but after many, many years of practice and now kind of way later, studying like a master's in jazz guitar and learning a ton of stuff, I've learned all the lessons the hardest possible way. I was just very thick-headed, as people say. One of my thesis papers, though, in college was about deliberate practice. And after reading tons of books and doing research based on modern learning science, I realized that really specific focus during your guitar practice is the most effective way to get better. So rather than just kind of noodling around, try to target specific skills. They could be a certain rhythm, a certain technique, or a certain lick. And don't target them for too long. A few minutes on each concept is enough, and then just come back around if you have extra time in your practice session. Or you can always just come back tomorrow. And I always recommend taking a few minutes at the end of your practice to just play and be creative. That's noodle time, I guess you could call it. Totally free play, so don't worry about what happens. Just play for fun and from your most creative place. That's also a great time to record or film yourself and listen back to how you are sounding. Recording yourself is one of your best teachers. So now that you're feeling more confident in your guitar soloing, watch this video next in order to simplify the way you play over chord changes. You don't need triads.